Every person has a story, but not everyone has a place to tell it. I'm Frank Swoboda. I've interviewed amazing people all over the planet. I want you to meet them. This week, the most interesting person you've never heard of is...
I'm Gavin Tenold, and I'm the most interesting person you've never heard of because I work in renewable energy.
Cool. All right, Gavin Tenold.
All right.
Welcome to the
MIP
podcast. Thanks for being one of the most interesting person that knows solar that I've ever met.
Thanks for having me here, Frank.
And thank you for demanding, just so people know, he demanded that I have his beer here today. He did, because I said, hey, I got some Stella in the fridge. He's like, hey, do you drink whiskey? No. I drink beer. Oh, okay. Pilsner. Okay, I got some Stella. Well, it's okay.
Was it that?
Why is it this beer? Why do you love this beer?
Well, it
tastes great, by the way.
My heritage is Czech, and Pilsner Urquell is from Czech, the Czech Republic. And I don't know, it just suits me.
So I'm Czech too. We didn't know that until like a week ago. We
Yeah.
started talking about beers. Yeah, my family's from Czechoslovakia. And
Swoboda means freedom.
We were just talking about it. It means freedom. Mm-hmm. Right. So, and they make a damn good beer.
My name does not have Czech roots, though. My name is Norwegian.
Okay.
So.
All right. Yeah, mine's way Czech. So you grew up here?
I grew up in Spokane.
All right. So give me the time for that. I've used this every podcast, I think. But what high school?
Joel E. Ferris High School.
Joel E. Ferris.
That's right.
And in the late 80s, big 80s, early 90s?
90s, mid-90s.
Mid-90s. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. What was that like?
Ferris High School?
Yeah, just growing up in Spokane and your experience there.
I think Spokane's it's a good place to raise a family. It's why my parents were here. Ferris is an excellent school, still is. I don't have reference for what it would be like to have been in a bigger city or an inner city. It's my childhood,
Right. We only know Spokane because we've basically. You've been here the whole time, essentially.
No, I went away for college.
Where'd you go?
I went to McMinnville, Oregon, to Linfield College.
Okay.
It's now rebranded as a university.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know if that
I've
has
heard of
any
Linfield.
meaning, but yeah.
Yeah. So how did you stumble into? So first of all, explain what you do, the company that you guys have, and what you do, because I think this whole idea of renewable energy and solar and everything that has to do with this wave of electric vehicles and everything that's happening is coming our way, and I don't think anybody knows it like you do, honestly. So tell me about Northwest Renewables and what you guys do.
Northwest Renewables is an energy services company. So we are a team of electricians and HVAC techs, and we specialize in the electrification of the built environment, especially in homes in the Spokane area.
So what's built environment mean?
Well, built environment to me means the buildings, and so our homes are commercial buildings, institutional buildings. It's where we spend most of our times in modern life.
The stuff that we build and live in and work in every day.
And this has, the built environment has effects on our health, our psychology, and it also has effects on the environment, the greater environment.
I think you do have a different visceral experience when you walk into different buildings. Mm-hmm. And I've actually talked about that, I think before on a podcast, but in the world of marketing, I've had the chance to work, to film kind of all over the country and all over the world. And usually because I have been a part of either shooting for or telling the story for another client at several major corporate headquarters. Mm-hmm. So I had the chance to go to Lockheed Martin in Virginia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And Nike in Beaverton, and Starbucks for 3 days in Seattle, and Twitter headquarters in San Francisco, Ben and Jerry's in Vermont, which was, and they, if you think about those brands, they're very different, right? Mm-hmm. Lockheed Martin and Ben and Jerry's probably couldn't be further apart, right? Mm-hmm. When you walk into Ben and Jerry's, the experience is fun. Mm-hmm. It's like they got a slide, like a full slide, and they got like it's just so fun. You know, that everybody has a dog, and the dogs have their name tags on the door, not just the person. And it's just, you know, they have like a meditation room and a massage room, and they kind of just take care of people because they work so freaking hard. You go to Lockheed Martin, and it's like black marble. You know, it's just dark and powerful and intimidating. And I mean, what do? They're in the defense business.
Defense contractors.
They're defense contractors. Yeah. And Nike, you know, very competitive. That's sort of the vibe you get there, you know. So, you know, and Twitter was just, my experience was, it was a kept place because everybody was in this little cocoon.
Was it an open source office, like open office?
Yeah, several layers, and everybody. I was the oldest person in that place. I mean, this was like 5 years ago. You know, I think I have said this on this podcast, but somebody passed me and they were in their 40s or something. I'm like, hey, I know you. We're in the same. You know, everybody was under 30, and amazing place, but it felt like a beehive. Where you didn't want to leave because you couldn't afford to live in San Francisco. So why would you leave? And they have, you know, 4-star chefs and, you know, I mean, they had everything you ever wanted. Every floor had a different commissary, and they did a lot of work. So the experience of that environment, right, I always feel like represents the brand that you have as a company. You know, the feeling of the brand of those places is the feeling of that built environment.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that? Is that something you've probably ever thought about?
Well, I don't have that experience with going into those large corporations, but
I just mean a building or
a building can communicate something about a person's psychology or a business's culture or but built environment, in my experience in energy, it has more to do with what the building is doing for the energy budget over a year or decades, how it's helping with a business's goals towards decarbonization, towards energy efficiency. Electric vehicle chargers, you're going to start seeing a lot more of those.
We already are.
Yeah, you know, these are all running off of your electrical meter in your building, whether it's a home or a business.
So how have you studied this? How do you know what you know about it? Because I know you've done a lot.
Mostly the School of Hard Knocks.
And if you say YouTube, I'm going to be
School of Hard Knocks. No, I got into it building very low energy houses. I was building passive houses, which are, you know, passive house being the global gold standard for energy efficiency. And I built a number of the first passive houses east of the Cascades in the state of Washington.
So what does that mean? What's the difference between it and a normal,
between a passive house and a normal house?
Yeah.
A passive house is a home that is airtight and insulated enough that it can heat itself almost entirely off of internal heat gains.
Wow.
So the heat that's coming off of these lights right now would be circulated through the house to heat it in the dead of winter. Yeah. I had some customers that were in a power outage in a passive house, and they said that at about day 11 they started to feel the temperature drop.
No way.
That was in the dead of winter.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So you built those. So you came from that sort of environment. Well, that's an interesting puzzle.
Yeah, that was my introduction into energy efficiency was through studying to become a certified passive house consultant and then building a number of these houses, running the energy models, running the calculations.
When was that about?
2010 through 15,
so
16.
Not that long ago, really.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what made you make the leap from that to, or maybe you didn't, maybe you're still doing that, but to sort of solar and these other
No, I wound down my general construction business and kind of handed that off. Moved into Northwest.
You were a contractor,
I was a contractor.
Making homes. Yeah.
General contractor, yeah. And moved into Northwest Renewables with my business partner because when I was building passive houses, I couldn't find a good energy services contractor.
And you would need that. I bet solar and passive houses would kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, the suite of services that we do is solar, heat pumps, electric vehicle chargers, standby generators, batteries, anything that makes a building more energy efficient, and more resilient.
So you started working on, hey, we better find an option for solar. There probably weren't any good ones, I'm guessing.
No, there was solar contractors, but the information that I needed to input into the model, I felt a responsibility to my customers to understand what I was going to deliver to them, and I just couldn't get the information I needed.
So you just started a new business?
That's how it started.
Probably the best way to do it.
Yeah.
It would have drove you crazy anyway.
No, I mean, I think that I want to be careful with how I word it. I think that it was a very quickly moving industry, solar, and you need to be willing to train and read. And Passive House was just kind of showing me the shortcomings of what I was being given, and that's how I got to starting Northwest Renewables.
So I know when we it's probably important to just say you are a client of ours at
Yes.
Booth Media, so
Yes.
we want to put that out there.
We need to put that out there.
So people aware of that, and that's why we've just thought this would be incredible, because so many people are facing this this tidal wave of change everywhere in our world. I mean, it's been going on for the last 10 years, especially. It's not going to stop. And a big part of that is just this reliance on this transition from basically fossil fuels, right, to other alternative energy sources. And where do you think that wave is going? Because I hear there's so much stuff you hear, and you can't believe everything you hear, no matter who you are and where you get it from. What do you hear that drives you crazy, and what do you hear that you're like, no, that's dead on? It's just in terms of this tidal wave.
In terms of the tidal wave,
of change and how we have to transition, away from different, or have a variety of different sources of energy.
Since this is about Gavin the person and not my business, I will say that personally, I am very concerned about global climate change. This is a catastrophe.
It's real.
And I don't. Did you see Don't Look Up? Did you? Brilliant movie.
Yeah.
Just really hit the nail on the head, in my opinion.
Yep.
So to answer your question, what drives me crazy is the disinformation that's out there. The disinformation.
What specifically, or what things in that world that it's not as urgent as it is?
It's not as urgent as it is. That we don't need to make incremental changes, because
we do.
And I'm a consumer, I'm a member of the economy, just like you. These changes that we make now are critical, so that when the time comes to hit our carbon targets, the change, if we wait till then, it's just going to be a change that we may not be able to make. We're going into a small recession here. It's like, what would that, if we waited another 8, 9, 10 years to make these changes, what's that going to do to our economy?
Right. It'll be way worse.
Yeah. Let alone what it's going to do to the climate. Yeah.
So any other ones misconceptions that drive you crazy, or?
Natural gas worries me. I have a personal concern about natural gas. I'm slowly trying to, turn off natural gas at my house, trying to control that.
that it's more of that it causes more damage to the environment than
it is a fossil
realize.
fuel
Right.
that is somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 times worse than carbon.
And not what we were told.
No, not that little blue flame in the hands. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, I filmed it many times. Oh yeah, of course, for different projects that we've done. And I love, my wife loves natural gas oven or stove. Like to not have that would suck.
Well, when I was building passive houses, all my customers, had that same concern, and then they tried induction cooking.
Oh,
induction.
What's induction cooking?
Induction cooking is it's
not like a turducken.
No,
This
it's
is very
not
different.
turducken.
Okay. It's not turducken cooking.
Induction.
Okay. I thought
It's where you have cookware that's
John Madden.
Yeah, cookware that's specifically set up to charge when it touches the cooktop.
What?
Yeah, and it's instant energy into the
So really even cooking.
really like
better.
You can grill the most perfect burgers.
No way.
Yeah.
So that's what's coming or here.
Well, that's I think it's a solution.
Just not at my house.
It's a solution
to the offset of I would rather cook with
gas
than I would electricity. Yeah.
So it's an electric solution that
people are thinking of smart stuff right now. I mean, there's a lot. I sort of mentioned this to you before, but I kind of stalked your LinkedIn page, which if you ever want to see a cool LinkedIn page, go to Gavin Tenold's LinkedIn page, because it's all full of these incredible things you find of people trying stuff. I mean, I can't remember a time when people were throwing shit on the wall, the way they are right now, trying to solve this big problem, because the people like you who really understand that it's coming are motivated in a way that a lot of people, and I'm going to generalize, but older, are sort of like, well, not my problem. It'll be my kid's problem. Right? But as much as you care about your kids or your grandkids, it's just viscerally different. I can kind of bury my head in the sand a little bit, but the younger you get, you can't. My kids are all about this.
The change is profound, and I've seen it in my lifetime. I know you've seen it in your lifetime.
Yeah. The last 5 years. I mean, it's crazy.
Smoke in the summers. There's a 5th season in Spokane.
We have a client, a utility client that we work with. That's not Avista, that they service the rural part of North Idaho, basically. And they basically would have about Priest Lake and Sandpoint and Bonners Ferry, that kind of area, and basically they would have 2 pretty major storms a year on average. Just you could mark it down kind of for decades. And last year they had 8.
Ooh.
And they do not expect that that's going to drop.
Yeah,
that will now be the new norm.
Yeah.
And it's devastating to people that have, lake cabins at Priest Lake and, that whole rural awesome place up there. I mean, we're facing, and often it's just the wind, just the change of the climate is really profound, and it's affecting everything that they're dealing with. And so you're right. These events are going to continue to happen, which is why the sort of idea of the generators, the generator that you guys create, that's definitely something that's more and more people are going to need, right? And want.
Yeah.
Can you explain how that works?
Well, we do generators. Unfortunately, they are fossil fuels.
At the moment, right?
But rapidly catching up to that are battery systems, and these battery systems can create a system where your home is island from the grid when the storm blows through North Idaho, and you still have power just like normal
Because it's been stored up.
Now,
does that only come with a solar system?
You should charge it with a solar system. Yeah,
right.
You want to charge those batteries, keep them charged when the grid disappears.
So I mean that that transition's probably not easy, but it feels like to me like what we're transitioning to is better, smarter. People are coming up with more innovative ways, like all the stuff you're finding on your LinkedIn page. You know what I mean?
Well, solar doesn't affect natural gas outside of making it more affordable for you to electrify your heating system, or pay for your electric vehicle, which you're parking outside.
Right. Exactly.
It can offset the electricity side of your bill.
Okay. And we talked about this before, because a lot of people will think, well, it's not very sunny here in the winter. How do you answer that question?
Well, the answer there is that the utilities are crediting you for the electricity that you're making in the spring, summer, and fall, and you're creating like a bank account that you're then drawing from in the winter months.
That is really smart.
And at that point in time, the wind is howling out in Montana, and that's probably where we're going to be getting our electricity from, other than the dams.
Yeah, because wind power will also be a future move.
Yeah.
there's going to be more and more of it. Yeah, and it's getting windier and windier there, for sure. I was just in Livingston not long ago, baby. It can blow there and cold.
I bought some new trucks for the company, and I tried to avoid driving through North Dakota and Montana because I just didn't want to deal with the wind.
And did you make it?
Yeah, we went down south. One of the trucks did unfortunately break down outside of Salt Lake City, but it's back home now.
So I see everywhere on my phone, and we're as guilty as anybody at pushing out ads on digital platforms is what we do. But it's, this young girl in a hard hat telling me that I better get solar before the tax credit ends at the end of the year, or the world will explode.
Yes.
And is this true?
No, it's not true. There is some deceptive advertising that I'd like to try to distance my company and myself from out there from my competitors. Yeah.
What's deceptive about it?
Well,
and that's got to drive you bananas.
We'll go with that particular ad.
Okay.
There's some other ones, but we'll go with that particular ad. The first thing that's deceptive about that one, in my opinion, is that they represent themselves to be a Washington solar program, like it's an official.
As if it's licensed on behalf of the state of Washington.
Yes, and
it does have that vibe.
When you click on that ad, you are directed to a contractor. One contractor in particular. So, last I heard, that's deceptive advertising. You're not. I think that legally you're required to put your license out there on anything you publish when you're in the business of contracting.
Right.
So they're not doing that, and it's not a government program. There is no Washington solar program. There's net metering with your utilities, but there is no official Washington solar program.
So that's just but there is does every state have a different regulation?
Every state has a different version of net metering.
But net metering is in every state of the union.
I don't know the answer to that. It's in most. There's quite a Wikipedia.
It's in all the ones that touch the Northwest anyway.
Well, it's most of the states in the union, I think.
So they're clearly running this ad in Washington State, and then they're running another one in Oregon that's exactly like it.
They'll change the name. And then the other part of that is this sense of urgency that she's creating in the hard hat. It's like, we got to get to you this year, because this is
all over.
It's all over, and that's just that's a falsehood. At the end of this year, the federal tax credit for solar steps down by only 4%. So for every $10,000, that would be a $400
$400 less.
$400 less.
So instead of getting $10,000, I'm getting $9,600.
Correct.
Still pretty significant to help offset the cost.
Yeah. So it's not as urgent as she's making it sound there. And the other side of that is, do you have tax liability? I think
right. So not everybody qualifies.
They're serving that ad
what.
to people far and wide, and
who do not have the tax.
Many of whom
liability.
may not have tax liability.
And so, just to explain that means that I own a company, or I'm going to pay taxes this year.
Yes.
A lot. If I'm going to pay taxes this year, then I would qualify in some way for that tax credit. How does that work?
You would qualify for 26% of the value of the system that I install.
Back to me.
Back to you.
Wow.
Off of your taxes.
Wow.
And that's been renewed, multiple times federally, so
for like a long years
since
anyway.
Since the aughts. Yeah, I think
we're on like over a decade probably.
Yeah. And so she's misrepresenting that too.
Right.
So it's just.
Well, and it feels like we had another client that did some solar, did work in the solar field, and I learned enough to be dangerous. Probably, I probably, and that was 5 years ago, so everything maybe changed. But my perception of that, his perception, and our client's perception at the time was, this is an area where both sides of the aisle agree pretty much regularly that this is something that's pretty important. This is both, Republicans and Democrats have been essentially okay with this, and it's been common ground, right? This tax credit, and I mean, it doesn't feel like there's a bone of contention there.
Yeah, that is the case.
It's not a political football. Pretty much across the board, most everybody supports this tax credit. Safe to say that?
Safe to say that. We'll see what happens. If it steps down 4%, it steps down 4%. It's
still significant. Yeah.
It's still a significant investment.
Yeah. So, do you expect any more of this kind of, as Biden especially pushes out this sort of, hey, we're gonna really take on renewable energy and have it be a change in how we all live and work, and our cars they'll all be electric and all this stuff. How much of that do you snicker at, and how much of that do you think is like, no, that's really going to happen?
I'm more interested in what's going on in the state than at the federal level outside of that tax credit.
Well, of course, that can change any day.
Yeah, the state of Washington is a leader nationwide. We've got the Clean Energy Transformation Act. We've got a nation-leading energy code. I think we as a state have got our act together more than most, more than we as a country.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
Wow.
On the renewable front.
On the renewable front.
Yeah. Why is that? Or what is the state doing that the feds aren't and could learn from?
Well, our codes are stronger. The
regulations around what you can and can't do.
Well, in terms of the built environment, what we're going for. Yeah.
What's that mean? The codes are stronger.
Well, our building code. You might have read about that.
Yeah.
Back to our natural gas.
Yes.
Yeah, the building code is significantly stronger in the state of Washington than most other states
for renewable energy.
Outside of California.
Are there things that we're going to be required to do as a builder that today that you weren't 5 years ago, and then in 5 years from now that you will be forced to do?
The current commercial code will be requiring small solar arrays on commercial buildings statewide.
So if you're going to build a new commercial building,
correct,
you have to have solar on it.
Starting in 23, correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what do you think of that?
I think it's fantastic.
I think it is too.
Yeah.
I think it's really smart.
I think that utilities are going to be able to start to really figure out how to use it for the best of an entire city or a rural area.
Right.
We have utilities in our state that actually have their peak in the summer months. So, because the cooling demand or all the irrigation out there in the Columbia Basin. And if buildings were to have the ability to shed load, we as a state are going to be better off in those heat waves that we're having. And,
right.
Yeah.
That's actually something. Yeah. There's a lot of good things that just aren't happening yet that we'll look back and go, wow, I'm glad that happened.
Yeah. Change is incremental.
Right. And it's a hot issue, right? You're in the middle of, how much has that been, I don't know, challenging for you? People thinking solar's, crazy, or this isn't real, or how could that actually work?
Or a conspiracy.
Yeah. Really? What have you heard?
Well, I get advertising on social media is interesting, and you get some comments. We try to respond to most of them, but some of them you just kind of need to ignore and move on. And those are, solar's a conspiracy. Solar doesn't work in the winter. Heat pumps don't work in the winter, and it's just not true.
It's just not true.
It's just not true. It's just not true.
My wife's uncle and aunt have a badass little cabin in Priest River, and they've had it for, I don't know how long they've had it, but we've been kind of visiting them and going there for at least 10 years, and it is completely off the grid, and it is the badass little place. Like, it's so cool. And he's got, battery chargers, right? And everything it's completely sustainable, and, it's kind of an amazing system. And, it doesn't pull at all from, the grid. And I'm just like, if that little cabin can do it, 15 years ago, we can easily do it now, and it's got to be the technology's got to be way better.
I don't know. I don't know if we necessarily
from the sun,
we don't necessarily need to get to where a house on the South Hill is off the grid.
Right.
We just need to get to where the house on the hill maybe isn't asking as much of the grid.
It's not pulling as hard,
or has the ability. Yeah, has the ability to help the utility do bigger and better things.
So for my house, I should probably put solar on it. You don't know unless you're in the right spot, right?
We
not every house qualifies.
Well, she says that, doesn't she?
She does say that.
Yeah,
she does say
not
that.
Her, to that particular company's credit, they do appear to me to check shading issues and
so you have to
general roof geometry. But there's other examples around our area where I see solar arrays that probably just shouldn't have been installed.
Really?
Yeah, just it's they're facing northeast, or they're on the lower South Hill where the sun just really never gets over the
crest,
top of the hill.
And so they're not gaining anything.
Unfortunately, yeah, there's some bad actors out there, but
which doesn't help your industry.
To the Washington Solar Program's credit, they do appear to be checking that kind of stuff.
So basically, you have to. It was super cool going to your office, which your team of engineers are amazing, and the software that you guys had, you were showing us, you're able to like pull up a house, and can tell instantly whether or not but just based on where it is, trees are around their shade, where it's located, whether or not that's going to qualify, right? Whether it'll get enough or draw enough.
What we're trying to do is install solar on roofs that are appropriate, and so that's a software using LiDAR technology. So it's looking at light, and it's just satellite based images of roofs, and we're very carefully locating solar on roofs in appropriate places. So commercial buildings too. You get on top of a commercial building, and there might be like an elevator shaft that comes up and creates this huge shadow. That would not be a
good spot, or something on the roof
would not be an appropriate spot. Yeah.
So like this building, commercial building on the South Hill.
I haven't looked at this roof,
so you don't know.
My hunch is that you're on that.
I'm too low.
My hunch is that you're on that low side of the roof, the low side of the hill.
The low side of the hill.
Yeah.
So how many of the people that inquire and call you guys, how many do you turn away, and how many just don't qualify? Basically, do you have any ideas? It's just
I don't.
Hard to tell.
I don't. I'd have to run some reports.
Yeah. But enough that you've stayed busy.
Yeah.
Do most of them qualify?
Do most roofs qualify?
Yeah.
I'd say about a third of the roofs we get. It happens. It
just depends.
At least once a week where we encounter an install where it's just like, I just don't think that we're either you don't have a big enough roof, or you've got a tree that you just don't want to let go of, and that's great. Let's keep the trees.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's just,
so I guess I'm just getting to like our overall in your time of doing this, to half the roofs qualify, do a third of them qualify.
Quite a bit more than that.
Okay, so most roofs do.
Yes.
Is it more like 70-30?
Somewhere in there.
Closer than
80.
More than 50-50.
Yeah.
So most homes would qualify for this.
Absolutely.
And probably most commercial buildings too.
Absolutely.
Especially downtown or something like that. And we had the chance to film a project for University District and the new Catalyst building downtown. If people know where that is, in Sprague, that whole new development where that cool bridge, the cool span bridge that goes over to Gonzaga and back, that connects the University District with the other side. That whole kind of area, there's several new buildings there. Can you take me through some of those buildings that you guys have helped to install solar on those commercial buildings as well?
The first is the Catalyst building, and that's a mass timber project. So the building is built out of wood, and I think it's a really forward-looking project.
That's amazing.
We did that in partnership with McKinstry.
Yep.
which is they're an energy services company on the large commercial scale. That was 220 kW, I believe, roughly. So the roof is pretty much covered with solar panels.
Yeah, we flew by it with our drone, and it's like solar panels across the whole thing. It was really cool.
Very challenging schedule. We were there right as the project was wrapping up, and just had to keep to it and get it done.
It's a big building.
Yeah, and then that building is the energy from that solar array is being routed to batteries in the Scott Morris Center for Innovation, which is across the street.
Oh, okay.
Which also has some solar on it that we did.
So the batteries that fuel, right? Mm-hmm. The catalyst building are across the street in another building.
Yes. So
why is that?
I don't know why. You'd have to.
No, sure.
You'd have to talk to.
There must be a
talk
reason.
to Avista's innovation lab. I don't know why they situated it.
There must be some cool reason why. That would be cool to ask them why that is.
We just managed the solar.
So on those batteries, do they essentially just go and recharge, or how long do these things last? Because I know in working with you,
I think
things don't last forever, right?
I think you got another podcast.
I think I do. So talk to the guys who built that, right?
Yeah, the innovation lab guys from Avista.
That would be very cool.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the other things I kind of learned, and I think, there's sales companies that sell solar, and there's construction companies that build them.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
You are, maybe the hard hat commercial is
we are
a sales company.
We are a hard hat type company.
You guys are the ones who actually build it.
Correct.
Yeah. And you're local.
And we're local. Yeah. So that's the other side of these deceptive, predatory ads out there. These companies are presenting themselves as contractors when they're gonna pick up the phone book and find a roofing company, find some way to get this thing on your roof, and they're not presenting that.
And some of these companies are from North Carolina and from
North Carolina, Utah. Yeah. One company, the vice president was actually indicted by the Washington Attorney General for timeshare fraud. He's now doing solar. So,
there's an obvious link there.
I'm in there. I'm in a very
clearly an expert
where there's rapidly growing business.
It's like the Wild West.
It's just gonna you're gonna find some
snake oil.
Yes.
Out there.
Yeah.
Well, and the reason that local's important, is because these systems, they're like a furnace, right? Or a hot water tank, or they're not going to last forever, and they need to be serviced regularly, I would guess, right?
Mm-hmm. O&M is a big deal with solar. Monitoring it, making sure that it's producing the...
So what O&M means what?
Operations and maintenance.
Okay.
Service. You brought up the furnace analogy.
Yep.
Your furnace operates better when it's cleaned.
Yeah, right.
When it's serviced. And your solar array is going to operate better if someone is paying attention to it to make sure that...
How often do you need to service, let's say, a new home? I know that you're putting in, you're one of the contractors that's putting in solar for the Greenstone homes. We can talk about that in a minute. But
it's very rare that we have to service something, but we monitor. So we watch to make sure that it's producing the amount of energy that we expected.
Do they get dirty?
They get dirty, but they clean themselves off the next time it rains.
Oh.
And the amount of decline in power that's produced from dust is very negligible. It's not worth getting on your roof to clean off your solar array.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
But
problems that could happen,
more on the battery side.
Micro electronic issues with DC to AC inversion. That's probably the most common, or something Wi-Fi singles not being strong enough. Just little things. It's
tweaking more than anything.
Yeah, it's just feeding and caring for the system.
So are those things that you monitor from
our office?
Headquarters?
From our office.
Okay.
Yeah, from our office.
And it's not something you have to go out and necessarily make trips to the home. Or maybe sometimes.
Sometimes
Depends.
That does happen.
So when I'm putting in
we don't have a full-time service department yet, but It will
You
happen.
will.
It will happen.
Yeah. So when you're putting in, so when I get solar in my house, I'm getting panels,
Correct.
but I'm also getting what? There
You're
is a
getting
system inside the home, right?
You're getting a marriage of that solar with your roof, and that needs to be watertight, and that needs to be strong enough for wind uplift. You're actually putting a sail on a
Yeah,
roof.
speaking of windstorms.
Yes, these things can come removed from a roof with wind.
How well do they do in these latest storms that we've had?
When you install to the manufacturer's specifications, they do well.
Okay.
Yeah, they do well.
If you don't install it right, they don't.
I'm going to forget the numbers. I've been asked that by builders. What happens in the wind, and I looked it up, and it was just some phenomenal amount of uplift that
it would need.
the anchors can.
You're talking
handle.
tornadoes for us or something like that. Yeah.
But that takes care. Our technicians are finding framing members and attaching to that.
So that's a big piece.
And then they're sealing to your rooftop to make sure that water doesn't
sink into the house,
sink into the building.
Right.
And then you're getting a DC, so that's direct current electricity conductor that is connected to an inverter
That's coming from the solar.
that's coming from the solar, and the inverter converts the direct current to alternating current, which is what
We plug into AC.
runs all the electrical devices.
So you have those two. They're not big necessarily, right? But they need to be put somewhere. They're sort of boxes, right?
Well, the inverters can either happen on a panel by panel basis under the solar array,
Oh, okay.
or
Right on
you
the
can
roof.
have a string inverter, which is usually mounted down by your electrical panel or in your garage.
Mm-hmm.
And there are now electric vehicle chargers that come directly out of that inverter, which allows you to drive your car on sunshine.
Wait. Okay, wait. Explain this now. So I can. So that inverter that's coming in from my
From your
that I'm
solar
generating
array.
from my own solar
Yep.
array can charge my car.
Can charge your car
That is awesome.
at a 25% faster rate than a normal level 2 charger. So that's
No kidding.
That's another 100. That's another 25 miles for every 100 driven.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, this world's awesome.
Yeah.
It's going to be so cool. It already is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys also do electric car chargers. I know Chris, who works with us, has a Tesla, and it's an awesome car. And we were just like, oh, it'd be really cool to have a car charger at our office here. Is that happening? Like, how does that work? Is there offsets for that? Is it just, it's all out of pocket, or are there credits for that, or they're just like different? Does Tesla need to put them certain places, or do how's that all work? Because I see them in places as I travel.
The economic case for electric vehicles is so strong that
Really?
when you really sit down and look at it, it's just what you want to do. Less maintenance, less expense over time, no trips to the gas station. I don't know if you enjoy going to the gas station.
Well, lately, it's
could-
pretty damn expensive. We could drink a lot more beer if we didn't have to pay for all the gas we're paying for.
Yeah,
right now.
yeah.
I mean, I don't want. I mean, it's all of this stuff is connected.
Yeah.
So not one person's fault that the gas is going higher, but when I fill up last year in my Highlander, $45, it's $75 now. I mean, that's significant increase to everybody.
Yeah, yeah.
And to not have that, it makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah, I don't want to say that I'm, cheering on high gas prices, but I don't want to make it sound like I am.
No, but this is help. It has to be helping what you're.
It is
talking
going to
about.
help electric vehicle sales.
It's making everybody. It has to.
Yeah.
Well, especially if you can marry that with, I can just pull into my garage, plug my car in. From and it's being powered by the sun that comes to heat my house.
Yeah, it's charging from your solar array at a faster rate than your normal level 2 charger.
Wow.
The only way to charge faster, the only charge you could get faster would be to go to plug into a DC fast charger somewhere.
So to get a vehicle, to get a charger, what is that? How does that work? Is it just an out of pocket thing, or are there rebates for that kind of thing too, or the credits or anything like that? Not yet.
The manufacturers are largely including them with the cars.
Okay.
So when you buy a Nissan electric vehicle, you're offered a charger. You're given a charger.
Okay.
And
What
so
do you guys do?
We get pings from the manufacturers through a third party that we've been chosen to work with.
I see. So the car manufacturers are contacting you and saying, "Hey, we want you to install."
They're contacting the network that we're a member of.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so people will call you to install their.
We get a ping on an app.
So it's not. I mean, I'm not equating this to it, but it's like, oh, I got in a car accident, and I call the insurance company, and they're going to go, oh, well, you can pick between these 4 places to take your car and get it serviced. You'd be in that kind of a network.
We're expected to be there quickly. Yeah, we're expected to be there pretty quickly. But yeah, we get pictures of the homeowner's utility panel, so we know what kind of electrical work we're gonna have to do. We get pictures of locations and distances for where they want the charger.
Do you do them at commercial places too? Mm-hmm. So in other words, out here in my office, we could put a electric car charger that would charge any vehicle that wants to stop by and get charged.
Yeah.
And is there a break for that on the commercial side, or is that just?
I don't know.
How does it work now? Is that something that comes from the manufacturer?
I don't think that there's a break as much as there's.
But you guys install
benefit.
those?
Yeah, we would install those for you.
So is that something that comes from the company that asked for it, or is that something that would I contact Tesla and say, hey, do you want to put a car charger here? I don't know how it works.
You had a fleet, if you were a fleet manager, if you were managing a fleet,
okay,
you're confronted with the decision: are the next vehicles that I'm going to buy going to be electric or hybrid or fossil fuels?
Everybody's going to. Yeah,
it's coming.
So I am faced with that because
you are.
Yeah, I mean,
are you running a fleet?
No. I'm just talking about as a car owner.
Yeah,
I think everybody's facing that.
Yeah, but I was thinking I was answering your question about commercial.
See. Oh, I see. You're gonna yeah.
If you were a commercial fleet manager,
I see. You're going to face that whether you do that or not.
And so we're getting pings
from commercial,
from that kind of work.
From fleet people that run a fleet saying, hey, we need to add this because we're going to go all electric. And all our trucks are going to be electric. Wow, that's just coming. That's the other thing that so as a just a consumer of cars.
Are you?
Maybe you're not the expert of that.
I'm not. But I mean, I'm not.
I have a 2017, and I'm like, I want to get. I was going to go get a newer car, a couple of years ago, and I didn't like the color.
I have an old white pickup truck.
Yeah,
I'm that kind of guy.
Right. Yeah. The guys at the dealership were great. They're like, I wouldn't buy one yet. I mean, you don't need to. Like, this thing's great. It's doing well. I love it, and it's a cooler color than I'd get. So it's performing great. But I know in the next couple of years, I'm going to get a new car. I mean, it'll be a time for a new car. Should I be getting just electric? How do you weigh in there? Does it just depend?
Well, I think it depends on your driving habits. I think many people, we're two car families. People,
yep.
One may become electric and one may stay a fossil fuel engine for long road trips.
My wife will never get rid of her 2008 Subaru because it's the greatest car ever. Her Outback is badass.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Until the network of charging out on the interstates and the highways is a little bit richer. Right. I do think that but for commuting around town, for commuting around Spokane,
right.
For drives to the lake and back.
Right.
These can do it.
Well, we had a big project that we did for a client, and we filmed all across Montana. I want to say a month and a half ago. So we went from here. We stopped. It was like a 7-day trip, shooting in all these different cities, from here to Billings, basically, and back. And we needed an extra vehicle to get all the gear and people that we needed to go. And I'm like, let's take the Tesla. I'm like, all right, let's do it. So we kind of figured out how to do it. And I drove back with those guys, the last leg. I kind of drove, and then Kelly drove, and then I came back the last leg, and she took off and went. At the end of the weekend, it's like, go to Hot Springs, Montana, and have fun. And so I went back with Chris and Dean in the Tesla, and it was amazing to watch the experience of being in that car and going down the other side of Lookout Pass and gaining power.
Yeah.
getting battery power back.
Yeah.
Because you're going down and you're not using it, but you're gaining it.
Yeah.
Which was remarkable.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I think the experience was cool. And it was a little bit more old school, like when we used to have to drive 55. Do you remember this? Do you remember when you had to drive 55?
I remember 55.
But it just wasn't so like, let's go. I mean, we do a lot of work in Missoula and Great Falls, and I mean, we bomb and we go there. Mm-hmm. But you can't quite do that because you've got to charge up, and we must have stopped 2 or 3 times along the way. So the drive back, I say all that to say, the drive back was slower. Mm-hmm. It took us longer to get from Missoula to Spokane than if I had driven, my fossil fuel rig. Mm-hmm. But I didn't mind it because we kind of stopped in, Kellogg and
cool spots,
hung out. Yeah. And every time you stop at a electric car charger joint, there's instantly 3 other Tesla people there waiting as well. And the conversation, they're showing off their car to you, and the tricks and the hidden cookies, and there's like a culture around that.
Yeah.
That I am certainly not a member of.
I'm not a member of it either.
But
I service
I
it.
see how cool it is, and I was like, this is great. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm living in the future. Mm-hmm. Like, we kind of are.
Yeah.
And I think that's encouraging actually, and I sort of like that I didn't have to like. Hustle,
Just hammer it.
Yeah, just stop and whatever. And okay, I got back a half hour later maybe. But I don't think it was, significantly.
A half hour. I mean, that's
really, if you're coming from Missoula, I think it was maybe I don't even, 40 minutes.
For good lived experience. Yeah.
For good lived experience. And,
and
the ride in that car was so cool. Mm-hmm. But that is going to change, right? Because those batteries, the next version, already probably.
Yeah, they're going further, and I can say with confidence that there's a lot of requests for proposals for building charging stations out there on those highways. So that's coming.
It's gonna be kind of everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they'll it's interesting when you work with sort of the other energy industry, the fossil fuel industry, energy industry, that. Just that reality for them of, I don't know how quickly this is going to go, and I don't think every car is going to change overnight. They're certainly not going to. But the gas station, as we know, it's going to change. Mm-hmm. I mean, it just has to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a crazy world. Going back to the question about your LinkedIn page, what are the coolest things out there that you see pop up that you just think, whoa? So there's some people doing some cool stuff that are sort of reimagining.
Heat pumps that can pump heat at minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. There's just like some really groundbreaking stuff in the mechanical world. Yeah.
Wow. Any others?
Grid interactive batteries are gonna become a player.
So what's that mean?
So that's the same battery that is in the Tesla that you were driving in, mounted inside someone's house that a utility has control over. So when the utility needs a little power, when, for instance, there's 110, 115 degree daytime highs in June.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The utility has the ability to pull that power and keep its
grid okay.
Yeah, it's and this is more the distribution grid. It's not the transmission grid out on open land. We're talking about distribution grid. Home to home. Yeah.
So that'll help a lot.
Yeah. So grid interactive batteries, and I'm a fan of continuous external insulation. I can't.
What is that?
Every time I see a good, so insulation on the outside of buildings, like a big blanket, making a thermos out of a home.
So everything's going to look like a Coors Light cold filtered can.
Maybe that's not.
I might be exaggerating, Gavin.
Like a thermos. An insulated.
No way.
Yeah, super insulated house.
But you probably can't tell any different. It would be any different than any other.
No,
home.
I mean you side over it. You see the difference during construction.
But otherwise you wouldn't. So that's happening now.
That's happening now. It's not. By anything a requirement, but it's
kind of smart.
It's smart, yeah. And I was very familiar with it when I was building, when I was general contracting. So I still follow the continuous installation guys.
Have you looked at the rest of the world and what's going on in other countries?
I have.
And I know you've traveled to some.
I have, yeah.
Tell me about those travels and what you learned.
So 2019, I think it was, 18 or 19, I took part in a...
Pre-COVID. Back in the olden days.
Back in the olden days, yeah. I took part in a trip to Scandinavia with members of the city of Spokane and some other parties, and we went and looked at buildings in Scandinavia that are, a lot of cross-laminated timbers, a lot of distributed renewables. Almost all of them were cooled and heated with heat pumps.
Wow.
And everything had continuous installation. Everything.
Wow.
It's just what's done over there.
So why is that? Because they just kind of have, they just have committed to doing it that way, or is it because of the climate and the need of that northern environment? Not that they're any much northern than we are. I
asked that question, and one of the answers I got was that they actually have different lending practices. So mortgages can actually be handed off from one owner to another. So you don't redo the mortgage.
Oh, I see. So I buy your house, I just assume your mortgage.
Yeah. So it changes the way we look at improvements.
Why is that?
Because the time it takes to pay off this energy investment can be spread out over a longer period of time and still be.
So my payments don't need to be as high right now. They could spread over 30 years instead of 15 or something.
Yeah.
That's a cool way to do it. So they're more likely to do it, and people just have sort of adopted. There's a culture there, I think, that just thinks this is right.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, this is the right thing to do.
Yeah, and their codes are stronger than ours. We talked about Washington's energy code.
Right.
Their codes are remarkably stronger than Washington's.
Did you what was it like to be there? Did you find that they're on the right track and this is hopefully...
It was inspiring.
Was it?
It was very inspiring.
What was most inspiring about it? That this is possible.
To see that what I was doing was not.
You're on this little island out here.
Radical. Yeah. No. Yeah. And you see it in Seattle. You're seeing it over there too.
But there is a label of radicalism to this sort of. You probably have had to deal with that.
I have. Yeah.
That seems silly to me, but I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Change is tough.
And people are going to go kicking and screaming. Is this when you talk about the concern you have of climate change and that it's really going to have a vast impact, are we going to make it?
I believe so.
Why? What makes you think so? Your trips to places like Scandinavia and the rest of the world figuring this out?
You got to have hope.
Yep.
You got to have hope. And I feel like every day I'm going to work and I'm doing my little part.
I think I've told this story before on here. I can't remember. I feel like all I do is tell the same story over and over on this sometimes. But I remember sitting in the car with my son Nick, who's going to be 26 Saturday. Unbelievable. And he's a super cool, really thoughtful, smart dude.
Mm-hmm.
He really always has.
Well, he's your son.
Well, thank you. He's his mom's son. Thank God. But at 2 years old, like this, at 1.5, he could hold a conversation. He can just speak really well, and he's really thoughtful guy. And we're driving in the car, and he's looking out the window. I'm like, "What are you thinking about?" And he's probably 12, 13, 8. I don't know, somewhere between 8 and 12, 10 maybe. He's going, "Well, I can't remember exactly how he said this, but it was sort of like, if we could just create some big filter so that when the sun comes on, it won't hurt us so much. We can survive better." He was thinking about some cool aspect, and it made sense. I was like, "What are you thinking about?" And it's like there's a way that we can have some layer that we create that will, like a filter on a light, will diffuse it enough so that we aren't the planet won't warm so much. At 10.
Wow. Did he go into engineering?
He kind of is interested in that kind of stuff. I mean, yeah. And I was just like, okay, first of all, at 10 years old, I was not thinking that, and you weren't either. I just say that because I think that this is I am optimistic too, and I've been optimistic probably since that day. But it's like the people younger than me are way smarter than me. Him, they're gonna figure it out. Like I'm a part of screwing it up. And I'm maybe the first generation, I'm like the Gen X guy that's sort of going, oh, this, to me, it makes complete sense that climate change is real and we should do this. But I know people 5 years older than me that think it's absolutely hogwash. And I don't know how, and part of it has been a really brilliant, I'm a marketing guy and a story guy. And I always feel like there are bad brands. There's bad branding. And global warming is a horrible brand. It's horrible branding. It's the wrong description.
Really?
But climate change is not.
Yeah.
Because people will go, well, it's not warm. I mean, it's, there's no different this year. It snows like.
Well, we have the smoky season now. That's climate change.
They were able to put a label around global warming and make it sound kooky. Like, that doesn't make sense. The world's not warming. Come on. It was warm. It's harder to prove that than it is to say the climate is changing. That is something you can't argue with.
Yeah.
Yes, it is different. We are experiencing. I never had. Do you ever remember growing up here, Gavin? Smoke in the summer?
Never. Well, there was the fields burning. They used to burn the fields.
Yeah.
They used to burn.
That's different.
Yeah,
man.
That's
not natural made problems of
right.
just week of smoke or more,
or
weeks of just not even be able to look across the street.
Or the drought, and I think we still are technically in a drought, like it was never as dry as it was.
No, but I mean, I think everybody right now is conditioned to think, oh, we're going to, August is going to be bad. It's going to be smoky.
Yeah.
And that never happened. So the changing climate is way harder to argue with than the place is warmer.
Right.
Even though that's also happening.
Right.
But I think that's part of it is just that we're coming to grips with that better, and our kids are wired out of the womb aware that this planet is not safe.
My daughter, when she was about 7, she was remembering something from a summer previously, and she said, well, it was the smoky season. And I just remember that innocent moment where she just said it right there. She was recognizing that there's a 5th season. That
description of it. Right, there's a 5th season.
Yeah.
Whoa.
It was the smoky season.
So I am encouraged that she and, they are absolutely get this and are like, oh, we're going to be all in, man. Mm-hmm. When we get the keys to the car, we're going to definitely change. Well, and I just don't know if we're going to do it, if there'll be time.
I hope we give them the advantage that they need, get the inertia going. I saw some numbers recently that said that we as a society, planet-wide have already spent 80% of our carbon budget, if you were to think of it like a budget. If we were going to keep global climate change to 2 degrees Celsius or less.
So that it won't be so it won't be completely catastrophic every freaking day.
Well, that's the thinking, is that 2% or 2 degrees Celsius is the max. And that's above pre-industrial levels. So back before the Industrial Revolution, you can dig ice cores and know how much carbon was in the atmosphere. And we're already 80% of the way there.
Before it's fully maxed out.
Before we're over 2 degrees Celsius.
So we have to, the way to reduce it, because there's a lot of people working on how to reduce that carbon footprint, but the most important part is to at least stop now, right? Get neutral.
Electrify the buildings, electrify transportation.
Because that's where the biggest...
Fix the grid.
That's where all Nick was talking about the ozone. He's like, I'm worried about the ozone, and I think if we can just, it's just like, dude... They're all thinking about this.
How did you hear about ozone when he was 10?
It was school, I guess.
Yeah.
I know, right?
Well,
But I'm like, I was like, that's actually a good idea. Like, maybe we will. Like, maybe you'll figure that out. Maybe somebody will.
I feel like those are silver bullet.
That's a pie in the sky thing. Sure.
I really worry about,
one big thing's gonna fix it.
Carbon capture. These are industrial solutions when we have the solution, in our hands, and it's distributed energy resources, more efficient buildings, electric vehicles.
Instead of this big, like, something's going to come save us
This
with
big
one big idea.
engineering project.
Right.
Yeah,
it's more the little stuff that we can all do. So what can I do right now?
Well, we could
What can
look
I
at,
do
we could
that-
look at putting solar on corner booth media, Frank.
Okay.
We could do that.
Right. Probably can't in my house, but maybe someday.
Yeah.
Will that ever change? Will the solar technology ever get to a point where every home could be solar? No.
I think that there's unfortunately just going to be some situations where homes and commercial buildings just don't have the right roof for it.
Is there ability to capture enough in battery from other places to be able to make everybody's home okay?
To be autonomous?
Yes.
I don't understand the question.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, even though, maybe my house doesn't qualify, but yours does. Mm-hmm. Well, the batteries get so efficient that I could store enough from that and buy it from you.
Yeah, there's a company called Sonnen, German company, with a lot of investment from Shell Oil, actually.
Mm-hmm. That's encouraging.
And they're doing a lot of experiments with interactive power between subscribers. So sort of like becoming a grid below the grid.
Right, so we could share
trading power.
We could trade power.
Yeah.
Wow, that's probably going to happen.
We don't have the regulatory framework here yet. I don't think.
But
they did a project in Salt Lake City though recently where they were trying
share that so that more homes can be energy efficient. I guess is what I'm trying to say. Wow. Yeah. You think this will happen? What do you think our life will be like in 10 years? Any different? Be a lot more. I think there'll be a lot more electric cars.
I think there will be more electric cars. I believe there will be more heat pumps.
2032.
I believe there will be more cars. I believe there will be more heat pumps. I'm not going to make any comments on continuous external insulation, but
on the outside of the buildings, that would be cool.
It would be cool, but would be costly, and we need to do this in an economically
smart way. Yeah. But we also
we don't have 80-year mortgages like they do in Scandinavia.
Well, maybe we need to.
Yeah.
Are we going to be able, that's the whole thing. It's a race against the clock, right?
It is. It's a race against the clock. There's no magic day, though, by when we have to get this done. We just need to make incremental improvements.
We got to knock that 80% down.
Correct.
And not let it get to 90.
Yes.
Because there's chaos at 90.
Yeah.
Probably at 85.
Stop the inertia.
Yeah. Cool. Wow. Well, thank you for doing this.
Heck yeah.
I think this is probably the dumbest I've ever sounded about anything. Because I just want to know this stuff, and I think everybody does, but we don't know I can't even comprehend all the stuff that's going on right now. That hopefully will find its way into the mainstream and shift stuff, Because you're right, I don't think there's one magic bullet either. I don't think it's gonna happen. It's got to be a lot of things from a lot of angles.
That's right.
And there's a lot of stuff going on out there. And I think I'm encouraged because there are a lot of people trying a lot of things. Maybe we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're optimistic?
I'm optimistic, Frank. I can sometimes speak slowly and seem like I'm not, but
No, you're not. You're not. I'm just, it's a concern. I just don't know if we're going to make it. Sometimes.
But you're optimistic.
Oh, I am, but I don't know. I don't know what you know. So I'm glad you said that. I'm just happy to hear that. And I'm really glad you brought me this beer.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. I brought you this beer. Cheers, man.
Cheers. Thanks, Frank.
Thanks for being the most interesting solar man
all right.
I've met.
This has been fun.
Thanks. This is really good.
It was.
MIP Podcast was filmed at the studio of Corner Booth Media. Please sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on social media. You can also listen to us on Spotify, Apple Music, and anywhere podcasts can be found.
We'd love it if you'd rate, review, and subscribe to help our podcast grow. Be good to yourself and stay interesting.